The ballots that are being counted right now are the ballots that were turned in just before 7 p.m. last night. The Denver Clerk and Recorder's Office tells us that 31% of all ballots were turned in between 5 and 7 p.m. Politics guy Marshall Zellender is here. Marshall, there are still enough ballots to be counted where there could be some movement.
I'm one of those ballots, by the way. Yeah, the math does not look good for a change at the top. I want to take you through the last three results updates, starting with last night. At the end of the night, Mike Johnston was about 2,700 votes ahead of Kelly Brough, and Brough led Lisa Calderon by 7%, 7,600 votes. Again, the top two advanced to the runoff. Well, at 2 p.m., we got the update, no change at the top, but the gap between Brough and Calderon shrunk to just less than 6%, and instead of 7,600 votes apart, 7,000 separated the two. And at 5 p.m., it got closer. Johnston still at the top, 3% difference between second and third, 4,800 votes or so. There are about, as you said, 23,000 ballots that remain to be counted. If the runoff is between the top two, issue-wise, there's not going to be much separation. But if Calderon gets to the runoff, you'll have two distinctly different choices. Hugs and happiness at Mike Johnston's party last night. He remains in first and appears headed to the June 6 runoff election for Denver mayor. Kelly Brough was feeling the vibe at her party, as was Lisa Calderon, who cautioned Denver voters to wait for every ballot to be counted. Those are your top three. Only two will be on the ballot in June. If the results do not change, there is not much separation in ideology. Johnston and Brough want to hire more Denver police officers. Calderon wants more crisis responders and mental health support. Johnston and Brough will enforce the camping ban. Calderon will not. The one difference on this chart for the top two, Brough said she would forcibly arrest people in violation of the camping ban if they do not accept help being provided. And on the possibility of Denver enacting a form of rent control, the top two oppose. Calderon supports. Johnston and Brough both supported ballot issue 2-0 to allow the development of Park Hill Golf Course. Since they are currently 1 and 2, we asked them last night, since 2-0 failed, what's their next move?
I've been very clear with voters. If voters say no to Park Hill Golf Course, I'll honor it, and I'll make sure we honor their wishes.
The next mayor has to go back to the drawing board and figure out what's possible in that location and figure out how to work with all the stakeholders who didn't feel like this represented their vision and see what else it can become. I don't think anyone has a goal for it to be a fenced-off piece of private property without access to public space, but now we have to go back to the drawing board and start over.
Let's do something that journalists should not be doing. Math. If I remember my percentages correctly, I tried to calculate at the 2 o'clock data drop how much of those votes, and I think it was 12,000 votes that came in at 2 o'clock, how much went to Brough versus Calderon, and it was 22%, I believe, for Calderon and 16% of that data dump for Kelly Brough. At 5 p.m., 23% of those votes that changed went to Calderon and still 16% for Brough. It's narrowing this gap, but Calderon needs to increase that percentage difference from 23-16. It needs to be closer, like 28%, 30% of the remaining votes to be able to make a change. And
Marshall,
the math doesn't look like that right now.
Marshall, I got into this job so I didn't have to do math, and here we are. When do we get more ballots? When's the next drop come in?
Not tonight. These are your numbers tonight. They'll continue to count the 23,000 or so ballots, and I'm sure we'll get that tomorrow. And don't forget, if you forgot to sign your ballot or if there was an issue with your ballot for whatever reason, it's your first time voting and you never provided ID, you can still cure it because your ballot hasn't been counted yet. So those ballots that are just holding off to the side right now could still alter some of these results, but that won't be known entirely until next week.
Still a long way to go. Marshall, thank you.